Good afternoon, class. Welcome to Drugs, Brain, and Behavior, fall semester of 2023. I'm going to be a professor, Dr. Olson. I am happy to meet with any of you at any time through scheduled Zoom meetings. I also am very receptive to email and will always try to respond to you within 48 hours. Now let's try to go over the syllabus here very quickly so you can understand what I'm really looking for and some of my philosophies toward this class. So in this class, we're pretty much split up into three component parts. The first part, we're going to learn about some of the basics of pharmacology, like pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. Then we're going to study drugs of abuse, and then psychiatric drugs. This is an asynchronous online class, meaning that we will never be required to be online at the same time. All course material is also being made freely available to you. I have set up numerous links in here. If there are any links that fail, which does happen at times, please let me know, and I will try to find a replacement link for you. I've tried to set up this class to provide multiple choice, flexibility, and equity. You're going to have multiple opportunities to pick and choose which quizzes you take, which discussions you participate in, and which learning groups you choose to join. Hopefully you can tailor this class to not only your own interests, but to your alternative life commitments. I understand that, we're all very busy people with families and jobs and other things. So hopefully that flexibility will help you out in navigating the class. I expect us to learn about the pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics and how they influence drugs of abuse. We'll learn about various drugs of abuse and drug addiction in addition to psychiatric drugs. We'll also touch on a little bit of how we study drugs of abuse, or study these things, how we develop new drugs. And we'll also even explore some alternative paths that we might take in the future, like computational approaches, maybe stepping away from animal research a little bit. But we'll also consider animal research even. We will critically consider current issues in psychiatric medicine. For example, is it a little strange that, many of us are taking the same dose of Tylenol, the same amount of acetaminophen, even though we have very different body types. We could come from very different backgrounds, have different liver enzymes. Maybe it's time to start tailoring medicine to the individual a little bit, but why can't we? That's something we will also consider. Finally, I would like you to develop your critical thinking skills here by participating in some critical analyses of leading expert content in the field. And I would also like you to have some critical thinking with your classmates, with your peers. So for these, I will have you join learning communities where you discuss drugs in sort of more of the intersection with pop culture. In this case, in the context of movies, music, or a book. You may explore drugs with your peers in any of those. I will explain that a little further when we get there. So again, I'm happy to schedule a Zoom meeting with anybody. I'm happy to set up some group Canvas meetings if there is interest. But from experience, I think especially in an asynchronous online class, it's problematic at times to try to wrangle everybody into the same classroom. So therefore, I prefer to set up individual or select group meetings on demand, and also will respond with an email very quickly, usually much earlier than 48 hours. Basically, if 48 hours has happened since since you emailed me, you have permission to certainly just start hit me again with an email, a not so polite reminder, and I will get back to you, because that should not happen. Again, there's no course material. I've curated a lot for you, that you can access free of charge. Active participation is required in this class. Discussions are a big part of it. I center, and my philosophy is now that the class should be centered around you as a learner, not me as a teacher. So really my lecture content will only make up about a third of how you're spending your time in this class. I also expect you to spend equal amounts of time discussing the critical analysis material of the experts in the field that I provide, and also participating in your learning community with your peers. You will also need to prepare a final essay based off of your experiences and your thoughts in your learning community that will be due in the place of a final exam. So again, we will have a very unique course format, but it's also going to be very cyclical, very repetitive. We're on a weekly schedule in this particular class, with most deadlines occurring on around the beginning of the week. So whether that's Sunday or Monday, quizzes will always be due by Sunday at midnight. And there will be 15 quizzes, one for each module. I highly recommend that you review the material for module 2 and 3 like you are preparing to take the quiz, even if you do not take it. And because those are top concepts that I build on. So, I mean, if you don't know what pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics are, you might be a little lost in future lectures. So at the very least, you need to become very familiar with that material. But you will have one 15-minute attempt at each quiz. These will typically consist of multiple choice and short answer questions, and I'm going to count the 10 of your 15 highest scores. So you can take all 15 quizzes, and I'll just drop your lowest 5 if you want to go that way. Alternatively, you can plan for 5 skips, 5 mental health days, or however you like to think about it. Just know that you have some flexibility there, some wiggle room. We will also have thought questions that are presented every module. In response to this, I believe these are midweek deadline. You will need to submit a brief 200 to 300 word summary of your thoughts to a discussion thread before the due date listed in Canvas. Prepare your paragraph as a response to one of the prompts that is listed in the schedule of events below. When multiple prompts exist, know that you really only have to respond to one of them. If you want to broaden things up, and you may do so. You're not restricted to one, but just know that I'm not asking you to respond to all these different things. I'm just trying to give you points to jump off from, but also trying to make sure that as peers or classmates, you are considering similar points that you can then discuss. And again, you may participate in all of these, but I will only count your highest 7 scores, which means you can drop as many as 8 or skip as many as 8 discussion topics. So here again, this is to provide you with maximal choice, so you can tailor this around your own interests, but also you can avoid topics that might be uncomfortable for you. You can also tailor the class around competing life events. Importantly, to earn full credit, I expect you to comment on at least one of your peers' thought paragraphs for each module. If I notice you are not commenting on your peers' posts and you are only submitting your own, I will deduct points from your thought question grade. Now, this is a relatively new assignment that I've developed, but here the idea is to give you a learning community that's primarily going to be composed of your peers, where you can discuss drug-related concepts in a unique setting. So what I've done here is I've curated a list of movies and sort of mixtapes, and I found a book that I think many of you, or some of you, will be interested in. So at the beginning of the semester, and I'd really like this done within the first 2 weeks, although I intentionally did not put in hard deadlines there, which I might want to do in the future, but I still believe that maximal flexibility with this one, will help you out a lot, and allow you to pick up the mixtapes or the movies or that you are most interested in participating in. So to earn full participation credit, you must make 4 out of 7 possible conversational discussion posts within your group discussion thread. I am going to be monitoring these, but I'm not necessarily going to be policing them. I will occasionally comment, and especially if the group size is low, I feel like I have to pick that up a little more. But intentionally, I plan to try to stay out of these rooms as much as possible. I very much enjoy the discussions that goes in to these based off of the limited experience I have with this assignment, but know that these are designed for you, people, you as classmates, to discuss these concepts and learn as a group of peers. And from this, you will create a document that I will grade at one point in time, which will be an essay. Now, I'll come back to the specific mixtapes and movies in a little bit after I explain the essay real quickly. So I want you to develop an essay based off of your critical thoughts in your learning community. Know that unlike my behavioral neuroscience course and other classes that I've taught, this does not have to be a neuroscientific research style academic paper. It can be. If that's what you're most comfortable with, I might be most comfortable with that if I were doing this assignment, but I want to be very clear that that is not what I am requiring here. I am requiring essentially a critical thinking essay where you develop a thesis based off of your learning community, and then you will submit that to me in the form of an outline, and I have a template by that below, and I can give you some feedback on that by midterm just to make sure we're on the same page. But at that point, you will develop a full essay, and the page requirement is based off of the learning community you join. For example, the book community, because it will require a few more hours based off of my calculations to fully read the book than it would to listen to 4 mixed tapes. I only require a 2-page paper for the book and a little more for the movie and a little more for the music club, with the idea that you would spend more time reflecting on the music than you would, and then writing about it, as opposed to spending most of your time reading. So, there are many different avenues that you can take this. You can bring in material from other classes. You can bring in lived experiences. You may contradict my lectures. All of this is fair game. I don't require references for this. If you want to bring in references, you may, but it will not help your grade out. That's not necessarily what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is a good critical thinking essay. And here, I'm also being I would like you to take a relatively casual approach with your writing style. Of note, first person pronouns are welcome. And then I have some additional detailed description of what I'm looking for in the media club section at the end of the syllabus. So what are we talking about in terms of grade here? Still, 40% of your grade does come from lecture material. You do need to understand the content of pharmacology, drugs of abuse, and psychiatric medicine to do well in this class. However, we will also participate in some higher level thinking and higher level learning by critiquing experts in the field through these thought paragraphs that you will create based off of that. And then you will have to comment on your peers' discussion posts. Otherwise, I will deduct from your grade. And then you will have your community discussion. You must participate or at least post at least 4 times in that community discussion board over the course of the semester. Again, I'm not really going to be tracking your timeline there, but I would very much like you to post or at least introduce yourself to your group within the first 2 to 3 weeks of joining the class. So we somehow start to develop our community learning groups. And hopefully many of you will want to participate or post much more than 4 times. That's just the bare minimum to get an A. The outline, of course, will be your thesis statement. I have a template for exactly what I'm looking for at the end of the syllabus. And then from that, you will develop your critical thinking essay based off of your thoughts from your community discussion group. Again, I have incredible flexibility in here. I think that you'll do quite well if you stick to the schedule. Again, it's very cyclical and repetitive on purpose. If you sort of fall into that schedule, I find that students do really well and don't have much problem. If you fall out of that schedule, and for a variety of reasons, and sometimes life happens, there is enough flexibility in here to bounce back and reestablish your consistent schedule. And but if everything goes wrong, still email me. Know that I'm willing to work with you. I still remember this one professor that I had that used to lock the door at the beginning of every class, and then he had a very strict attendance policy you couldn't miss. And yeah, I don't want to do anything like that. I want to go the exact opposite approach. Oh, and for studying for the quizzes, my main recommendation for really this in all classes is that rather than just reading your notes or the PowerPoints passively over and over again, or listening to my voice, which has to get annoying at some point, I instead would recommend trying to teach the learning objectives out loud. I find that doing it out loud is a very important part, at least for how my brain works, for multimodal learning. I consolidate the information much better, much more efficiently, much more effectively. We are going to be bringing up multiple topics here that are timely, relevant, and controversial. Two that are already just, I know, will seem controversial to some are, we're going to talk about animal research and, historically in these sorts of classes, you might just learn about a T-maze or an operant box or something like that. So most of you have done that already. And while we will touch on methods a little bit here, I want us to debate, consider a little bit about why are we even doing animal research? What is that like to the animal? It's an uncomfortable thought, but it is one that might be worthy of consideration. And if you just don't feel that you can do that or don't want to be a part of that, I completely understand. Luckily, you don't have to. Take that as a drop. Similarly, we're going to be discussing the role of sex and gender in pharmacology. I think that there is considerable evidence depending on the drug, things like your body composition and even hormone levels can influence how a drug absorbs through the body to get to the brain and produces effects. So, how should we better tailor the concepts of sex and gender to pharmacology? Again, not a topic that everybody might want to participate in. And again, that is completely fine. Drops are there. Take it if you want it. But in these community discussion rooms, I want it to be known that I expect us to discuss these concepts openly and with civility. I admit, an animal researcher. I have most certainly interacted with many students who have wanted to attack me for that, and that is perfectly fine. I can take that a little bit. But let's talk more about animal research itself and the ethics of it. What is the animal experiencing? These sorts of things. And do we still need it? Can we replace it with computation, for example, rather than necessarily trying to attack the messenger? Challenge ideas that you disagree with through reason and debate, rather than avoidance or suppression. Challenge the idea, not the person. I would very much like you to be willing to lean into difficult conversations and consider diverse perspectives. I would like you to acknowledge that we come from different backgrounds and bring unique perspectives. Please don't make assumptions about other people's identities. That can lead to a lot of problems. Acknowledge where you agree with your critics and what you've learned from them. And also know that in this class in particular, people tend to share informal thoughts and political opinions about drugs, and they might not want those shared outside of the classroom. So please be respectful of that. And, don't try to do a gotcha moment on somebody, an aspiring politician, that wants to have some free and open conversations about opioids or psilocybin legalization or something like this. These sorts of things probably should stay in the classroom, if unless they cross the line, of which course you should report anybody that crosses the discrimination line to the Office of Equity. And please also limit personal drug stories. There is a time and a place, and I'm sure some of this will come up in the community discussion rooms a little bit, and that's fine. Especially when we start talking about addiction a little bit. Some people have been through the ringer in this class, I guarantee it. Really, who has it? Who doesn't know someone that's died from a drug overdose in this day and age? So, there's a lot of emotional things to say, and I would like some of that. All of that is allowed, to be clear, but just know you might want to limit a little bit about what you share. We have heard lots of stories about drug dealing and drug use through the years that you might want to consider before you put in writing, non-anonymously, which brings in Arrowwood, an excellent resource if you want to learn from or share drug experiences that you think you might help or others learn. Do know, again, sensitive topics will come up in this class. We'll talk about mental health issues, psychiatric issues, mental hospitals, prisons, and race and socioeconomic status, sex, gender do come up, death, suicide. I just mentioned it. War, sexual assault, another horrible, component of drug abuse. These are things that could come up in this class. And I did not bring this stuff up lightly. I just bring it up because it is critically important to understand, drugs in our society. And, I'm not willing to shy away from these timely and relevant issues like that we should be open to discussing. But I understand, and I would like everybody in the class to be mindful of the fact that many of these issues affect multiple students in the class, oftentimes through intersectional means. By that, I mean that, some people could be even more impacted by being affected by multiple sensitive issues. So I just want you to be very mindful of that when you are speaking about these topics in any of our discussion rooms. And also think of this in terms of career development as well. You will have colleagues in the future, of course, that suffer from very sensitive issues as well. So learning how to discuss such concepts without bringing out offensive language and these sorts of things would be beneficial for your career development. Know that if you've started a discussion and find that something in there is causing you trauma, you may leave that discussion post. Please let me know, and I will at the very least drop the discussion grade for you and make sure that you have sufficient opportunity to earn all of your discussion credit in this class. Again, please let me know if you need to excuse yourself from one of my lectures as well. I've tried to make these, very, like relatively safe, but sensitive issues do come up. I've posted these online for complete transparency. Anybody can see what I'm saying. And again, I do that on purpose to be completely transparent. I do not expect such transparency from you in your discussion posts. I do suggest you keep those probably within the classroom, but I think I should have a higher standard of responsibility. Know that I'm very committed to the concept of universal design, especially going through the pandemic and looking at a lot of data on outcomes in my classes. I think I've identified multiple ways to make my class very accessible to all students. I have had pretty much everything that you can imagine happen to my students over the last 11 years that I've been at CU Denver. And I really don't think you're going to surprise me at this point. I mean, I've had uh, military deployed abroad, had all sorts of traumatic incidents, deaths, everything you could possibly imagine, I think. And I like to set up my class in a way that we have this sort of flexibility, so you have a little cushion, so you can take a hit and bounce back. That's sort of the idea here. And if the flexibility that I provide is not sufficient, let me know about your case, about your situation, and I will find an equity-based solution for you to complete the class, as long as you get back on track and are striving to finish. And I like I will say I like this phrase, like, my deadlines exist to keep you on track to complete the course, not to punish you. That's my new philosophy on deadlines. Academic integrity is still important here. I know many of my quizzes have been published to these test banks. I understand that. I know what the short answers in there look like. Please don't post those. I've seen them before, trust me. And also I would rather you try to avoid AI generated writing in this class. That is something I can also monitor, and I'm learning pretty well how to monitor. So email me if you're confused about the how AI generated writing can be a form of plagiarism, and I would be happy to clarify that concept to you. But yeah, I wouldn't use ChatGPT to write your discussion posts or essays, please. Discrimination is a big issue to me. I'm a big fan of the university's discrimination policy. And, I think the best way to handle this is for you to report me or any student in the class directly to the Title IX coordinator if you find anybody violates this discrimination policy, including myself. In fact, I should be the first person you report. Here's the course calendar, the schedule of events. As you can see, we have very consistent a quiz date followed by the discussion due date a few days later, which does, I acknowledge, sort of cut into the right. Anyway, like I do expect you to work on these quizzes and the discussion due dates, but know that you have 5 drops. And they don't have to be the same. You can skip a quiz one week and do the discussion, or you can, or vice versa. So there is the schedule of events with all of the due dates. Below that, you can find the material that I would like you to review for quiz 1. I mean, this would typically just be my recordings that I make either on PowerPoint in a voiceover format or in YouTube videos that I've created. Then for the thought paragraphs, you can see the material that we would discuss at that point. Here you can see the prompt, for example, for this week. Is alcohol more dangerous than psilocybin, for example? What do you think? And again, there are multiple ways that you can jump off for most of these. So again, very consistent, but every module, review the lecture material, the thought question material, and then also be working on your media club or your movie, book, and music club. So here you need to decide whether you want to critically consider drugs through movies, a book, or a mixtape. You will eventually have to prepare an essay and an outline using these instructions. Here are the page limits for the book, movie, or music club. And then, so for example, if you choose the movie club, I would like you to, ideally watch 4 movies over the course of the semester. Some of them are sort of popular. I mean, Requiem for a Dream especially involves forced sex work. I mean, again, like sexual assault, arguably. There are some graphic things in some of these, so you might want to review what you're clicking on before you do and make sure you're okay with it. But the movies are a good option. There's this book club, How to Change Your Mind by Bill Poland, who also has a Netflix series on the similar ideas. In addition, I've assembled a series of music mixtapes that surround different drug-related songs, and I've tried to break them into themes. So if you go the music route, I would like you to listen to 4 complete mixtapes and comment on them over the course of the year. I completely encourage you to bring in your own music choices and movies and even books. But I would like you to also participate in at least 4 of the music mixtapes for the movies or this book, because I want you to discuss this material with your peers. If you want to go more of a drugs expanding the mind approach, you can do that. If you want to focus more on drugs in society, you can do that. If you want to study more about discuss more the dark sides of drugs and drug use and addiction, you may do that. And interestingly, I think this could be best when we have people with multiple perspectives in the same room, learning from each other. So here is the outline template. Very simple what I'm looking for. Again, I'm mainly going to be grading you based off of your thesis statement here, but I want to make sure that we are going in the right direction and we are on the same page about the assignment. Then finally, your essay based off of that outline will be due the finals week in place of a traditional final. Please let me know if you have any questions for me. I look forward to an excellent semester.